Happy Friday. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. You know, it's been a gut-wrenching week as Americans see the dark specter of socialism taking over America's government, a government that used to belong to we the people. This show will chart a course forward committed to protecting patriotic Americans from the harm that Joe Biden and his merry band of Marxist-Leninists will be imposing on the United States. We have a jam-packed show tonight. Corporate America is firing people for exercising their First Amendment rights. We'll discuss it from every angle with the great Trish Regan. Diamond and Silk will be here to give you freedom lovers out there a brighter day. And one of the mechanisms that Biden will be trying to use to take away your hard-earned money and give it to terrorists in Iran or dictators in China is the controversial theory of man-made global warming. The founder of junkscience.com is here to help wade through theories that liberals will use to separate you from your freedoms. But before we dive into the day's news, we all remember the opening days of the Trump administration. His election signaled that America had rejected a political class that had and is still failing America in the most spectacular of ways. The Socialist Democrats proclaimed themselves to be members of the resistance. From the halls of Congress to the DNC to CNN and MSNBS, they all proclaimed that Trump was not their president. The Socialist Democrat candidate for president set the tone for the next 4 years, proclaiming that President Trump was illegitimate. Now, this is nothing new. 2 decades ago, these degenerate socialists declared President Bush was also an illegitimate president. So after 20 years of trying to persuade our anti-American friends of their errors, pleading for civility and a restoration of our mutual commitment to the Constitution and our institutions, we have finally had enough here on the Chris Salcedo Show. The extreme left has earned our opposition, and to that end, Biden has already failed. That's the observation we provide in tonight's preamble. Joe Biden spent the 2020 campaign in his basement, as you all know, claiming that he wanted to unite the country under our shared values. Let's remember for a moment that Biden can scarcely remember what day it is, much less what our shared values are. Biden denigrated President Trump, accusing him of single-handedly destroying civility in America. In truth, President Trump was simply reciprocating the copious piles of manure that had been dished out by Democrats for years. Democrats love dishing it out, but they really can't take it, my friends. Let's examine Biden's first test. On Wednesday, a small number of malcontents broke away from the mostly peaceful protest in the nation's capital and trashed the House and Senate. There were over 100,000 men and women of all races, colors, creeds, and professions that did not commit a crime, only protested voting irregularities. How did the great unifier Joe Biden bring our country together?
What we witnessed yesterday was not dissent, it was not disorder, it was not protest, it was chaos. They weren't protesters. Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists.
Okay, nothing says a president for all Americans like calling your political opposition terrorists 2 weeks before you're even sworn in. Contrast Biden's divisive tone with a real president.
We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high, but now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation.
Did you get that? While the socialist called his opponents terrorists, President Trump called for calm and healing. We can expect a steady diet of extremism and anti-Americanism from Biden in the years to come. And as you all know, he was born with his foot in his mouth. And while the folks over at CNN and MSNBS covered up for Biden's racist comments during the campaign and his general buffoonery, we won't.
No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently than the mob of thugs that stormed the Capitol.
Well, he's not wrong. That's right. They would have been treated differently. If BLM and Antifa had raided the Capitol, they'd still be there. Liberals allowed these leftists to seize whole swaths of U.S. cities where they declared themselves autonomous. Did Biden or the mainstream press call them insurrectionists? No. If BLM and Antifa had laid siege to Congress, they'd be shacked up in Pelosi's office and she'd be serving them tea tonight. Remember, Biden spent 6 months in his basement before he even condemned the killing, beating, looting, and burning conducted by his militant arms of Antifa and BLM. It took President Trump hours to call for an end to the violence we saw on Wednesday. I just showed you a contrast in these two men. President Trump with his strong, pro-American, unifying, pro-rule of law message, and Biden's divisive, craven, and tone-deaf message. Biden hasn't even been sworn in, and he's already failed America.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.